Hello YouTube. Today I'm bringing you a jollof recipe that I have made. This is my way of making the Nigerian jollof, and I made this jollof with some pepper chicken and a simple salad, and I'm here to show you how I achieved this finished product you're seeing here. Hopefully you guys stay tuned and like and subscribe, comment, as well as share this video with your friends. And if you want more cooking videos, please let me know, and please stay tuned, and I will show you how I was able to achieve this very tasty meal. Thank you. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare the chicken. For this recipe, we're going to use 1.5 size of onions. So here I'm showing you how I'm just going to cut the onions. There's no specific way of doing that, and I'm just cutting the onions I'm going to use to cook the chicken. And the chicken is going to be boiled until soft, not too soft, because we need the broth. That's the liquid that comes out of the meat when you've boiled it, or even when you bake it. You can always see that liquid, and this is going to be serve as the base for our sauce for our rice. So here I have some chicken quarters, and I'm just going to cut that into smaller pieces like that. So all you do is just put a knife through the flesh and crack open the bones, and if it's just too hard to watch, you can just skip this part and just get your chicken that's already been cut. So I'm just showing you, I wanted the chicken to be in a bit of smaller pieces so it cooks quickly. Another thing I was going to say is if you want your jollof to taste like the following day's jollof, you should probably cook your meat a few hours in advance and let it sit, and then use the broth to cook your rice. So here I'm showing you the spice that I discovered. It's an Arabic spice, and it's called what's the name, but I'll show you guys at the end of it. But I got the whole one, and I'm going to grind it up. So I started getting my spices whole because I noticed that when I use them, the taste is always more intense. So when you buy it whole, put it in an airtight container or a Ziploc bag, and then grind the ones you need. So these are called cloves, yes, and they're excellent for broth, especially chicken, goat, and beef. And I'm also going to use Maggie cubes, but here's the thing, you can substitute Maggie cubes for cloves and nutmeg. So you can use nutmeg, cloves, pepper, black pepper, and ginger. But for this recipe, I don't mind using Maggie cubes. I know that's up for debate because of the GMO in the Maggie cubes, but I always make sure I use a little bit. So this is the chicken I've cut and washed in the pot, and this is the onions I diced. So I'm trying to show you the steps, and I also didn't want the video to be too long, so I've actually edited some of the content out. But this process takes a while. This rice takes a long time to make, so I would say that if you're really trying out this recipe, you should give yourself at least 4 hours to cook, depending on the quantity as well. To that, I'm just adding some salt. No particular measurement, but I didn't use too much because I'm going in with a lot of other spices, because like I said, the broth of this chicken is the base for the rice. Going with a little bit of black pepper. I'm also going to go in with a little bit of dry ginger. You can use fresh if you want, but I had just used this what I had at the time. I used some dry ginger, and I'm just going to use a little bit at a time. And these are all just like little sprinkles here and there. I don't really have a particular measurement, but while the chicken cooks, when it's cooked, you can always taste it. So here I'm going in with the cloves that I just grinded up. This is really strong, and you only need a little bit of this, like that's all you need. You don't need too much at all. And I'm going to go in with my nutmeg. This is soft chicken, so this is the chicken you buy at the store. This is not the one you get at your your local poultry. This is not hen. The female chicken takes a long time to cook because she lays the eggs. She has to be stronger muscles. But this is the soft chicken, and this might be the male chicken, and it's the really big one. So it takes like 10 minutes to cook, and you need to watch this closely. You need to stay in the kitchen while this is cooking so it doesn't burn. So I'm going in with 2 cubes of Maggie cubes. With 2 cubes of Maggie, sorry. So this is the chicken boiling. Of course, this is an edited version. It takes a while for it to start boiling. That liquid you have there, this is what is going to be the base of our rice. So the chicken has cooked, and I let it sit on the gas burner. I just let it sit in the stove for like 3 hours so that everything settles and the seasoning sinks into the meat and all that. So when it was kind of cool, I greased up my baking pan, and I'm going to take the chicken and put that in the oven so it dries. So it gives you that crispy texture that you want for the peppered chicken that you make afterwards. So this is I'm just taking out the chicken and laying it down on the tray. As you can see, you can just look at what I'm doing, nothing specific. And you want to leave that liquid there. That's the broth. That's what you need for your rice base. So I think everything around here is self-explanatory. Oh yeah, you're gonna put the chicken in the oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. You're not trying to cook it, you're trying to brown it. So it's okay to start with high heat and leave it at high heat. You might even have to increase it to get it to the dry consistency you want. So I'm putting that in the oven just like that, as you can see, and that's going to be in the oven for like 25 minutes. But it's going to change depending on the kind of stove you have, the amount of time the chicken stays in the oven. So that's the chicken browned. I'm going to go ahead and prepare my tomato sauce for my jollof. So here I'm using actually 1.5 bell peppers, the big one, and I'm going to take the seeds out just like that. And then I actually have some tomatoes in there, but I don't know the quantity I have, but I would say I have at least 10 medium-sized tomatoes, and I have some habanero peppers. Those peppers are really hot, so I'm using just 4. And I'm going to grind that in my blender. This is my Nigerian blender that I have. I love it because I don't have to add a lot of water to it. You can see the razor blades comes all through the height of that blender. So I just put everything in there, and I'm going to add some onions that I have left from my meat, just like that. And I'm going to grind it up like that. You want to make sure you have a smooth texture when you're grinding it, just like that. And then you can see that the tomatoes are halfway, so what I did is I just added the remaining to it, just like that. And I'm just going to grind it, add the onions in, and then just grind it. So that's that. Just grind it up, and then when you're done, we're going to dry that in a pan. Just take your tomato puree or the blend that you just made and put it on the stove, on the pan. Do not add any oil to this, because you want the water to evaporate, and you want it to get a very thick consistency, just like that. So you can see the tomatoes is boiling just like that. This is going to take a while. That took at least 40 minutes to get to this consistency. It took like 40 minutes, but you can see there's still water in there, so I left it to dry. You want to cover the pan halfway when that's happening, because you don't want the tomatoes to like just splatter everywhere and cause a mess. So that's what I did. So here I have my pot that I'm going to use for my rice. This is half an onion. I use the red onions because it has a bit of a stronger flavor. going in with a scoop of tomato paste, just like that. And the tomato paste gives it some color, some vibrant colors. It also adds a little bit more flavor to your jollof rice, or to the sauce for your jollof rice. So this is very important to fry the onions with the tomato paste, because you know the tomato paste has a very strong flavor. So the onions will just help neutralize that. You also add some sweetness to the base of the rice. So this is the tomatoes we just grinded up. This is the one we made, homemade one, and we're going to add that into the pot with the paste and the onions will sweeten it up and make sure everything marinates and make sure everything tastes really, really nice, just like that. There's going to be a lot of frying here. As you can see, this is going to fry for at least 15 minutes. And then I'm going to add my paprika. This is so extra flavor. And I'm going to add this jollof seasoning that I bought from the store. I'll show you guys in a little bit the seasoning I'm talking about. So like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of frying. We want everything to be uniform and a very smooth consistency. And then we're going to add we're going to add the jollof seasoning to that after we're done frying. No, while we're frying, we're going to be adding the seasoning to it. So this is the jollof rice seasoning that I bought. It already has some spices in it, so you have to be careful how much you add, because the broth we're going to use already has some spices as well. So I'm going to add some red hot peppers, just some dry peppers. They're not really that hot, but it gives it a really, really nice smoky flavor that people like. I noticed that when you use dry pepper, you can get that as well. But be careful how much peppers you're adding to this, because it can get very spicy. And remember, we already have some habaneros added to the blended puree we made. So this is frying for at least 10 minutes now. So I decided to add a little bit more tomatoes to it, but it just wasn't enough because I was trying to make a lot of rice. And in this cooking, there's going to be a lot of improvising here and there, but if you're doing this for the first time, just mix small quantities. So I'm going to let that fry for another 5 minutes, and then when the water is completely dried, I'm just going to add the chicken broth to it. Taste as you go, taste as you go, taste as you go, because what this sauce is going to taste like is what your rice is going to taste like. So I always go in with lots of nutmeg, because I love nutmeg, and I just feel like it's very hard for you to add too much nutmeg because it doesn't have salt or anything that's too strong, but it can get overpowering, so just be careful. So I added a little bit of Maggie cube, because remember we have a lot of tomatoes in there, so the chicken broth didn't have enough flavoring to actually flavor the entire pot. So I just went in with a little bit more spices. You can add whatever you want, but this is the ones I use. So just go and taste. But that broth really will make a huge difference. If you make your broth with a lot of seasoning in it, at last you might just need to add a little bit of salt, but for me, I go in with some extra spices because we really want this to taste really nice. So that's that. Oh yeah, I added some hot peppers and some black peppers previously in the previous clip. So you can see that's quite thick. Yeah, you want it quite thick. So for this recipe, this is 5 cups of rice. I measured out, but I edited the clip. This is long grain rice. You want to make sure it says long grain rice. That is already parboiled, so I'm not parboiling this rice. It's already parboiled. I'm just going to wash it. Just see that white fluid? We're going to wash that off the rice, just like that. And then when we're done doing that, we're going to drain the water out. and then this is going to be cooked in that base that we just made. It's going to be put into that pot of tomato sauce, just like that. That looks yummy, doesn't it? So this is, I feel like it's easy because I've made it for a while, but if this is your first time, I would advise for you to make it in small quantities. Maybe start with 2 cups of rice. 2 cups of rice is enough for like 3 or 4 people, well, depending on how much you guys eat. So I made sure this base is well seasoned. Again, you would taste it when you put your rice in. You might have to add a little bit more, but everything tastes the way I wanted it, so I didn't add any more. And you never want to put too much water. As you can see, you can still see the rice from the surface of the tomato base. Yeah, just add enough to cover the rice and a little bit over, so that way when the rice is cooking, you're not going to open it to add water, and then you're going to like disrupt the cooking process and the rice might get mushy. So this is what the rice looked like when we're done. It's still cooking, but for that smoky jollof smoky jollof flavor, you want it to burn a little bit, and then while it's cooked, add some raw onions to it. So while it's burning, the onions will be cooking at the bottom. Cover the onions with the hot rice, and then let the rice, just a little bit of brownness underneath the pot is what you want. It will give you that smoky flavor that you want. So that's our rice ready. This is heavily edited. If you want a full, like if you want real time how this is done, please comment down below. But I feel like this should be doable. I'm making my spicy chicken with the chicken that remember the chicken we started off that's in the oven. This is the sauce for it. So for this, I'm just using one red bell pepper, loads of ginger. As you can see, I love ginger, and some hot peppers. There's 2 habanero peppers in there. I'm going to clean it up just like that, and I'm going to grind it up just the way I did the tomato base, and then we're going to use that to make our spicy chicken. This is really easy. You can make it and just eat it by itself, eat it with salads, but I made this just in the days that we don't want to eat rice. You can just eat it with something else. So that's the tomatoes, sorry, those are the peppers we just grinded up. This is the oil and some onions that we're going to use for our chicken sauce. So we're just carefully frying it, and that looks so good. Yeah, that onions is going to make it taste really nice. And that's the peppers we just grinded up, the peppers and ginger puree we just made. So we're going to let that dry a little bit. It's a bit too liquid. We want that to be really, really thick. So this is while it's cooking, I just give it a little stir, and I'm also going to add some seasoning to it, but not too much, because remember the chicken has already been seasoned, and we let it sit on the stove for a few hours. So just the extra seasoning here, I'm going to add this for the salt, and I'm using 1 Maggie cube, just like that. I'm also going to use a little bit of salt, taste as you go, as I said before, and then stir. Make sure you're stirring and make sure that you're protecting yourself, because this is going to splash everywhere. I usually cover it halfway, just like that. And I'm adding, you know, my nutmeg. I love nutmeg, but you don't have to use this. What is important here is that you use some salt, some pepper, maybe some Maggie cubes. You can use the cumin or the cloves, but I just kept it simple. Like I said, the chicken is already well seasoned, and it already has that crispy texture we want, so we don't want to do too much. If you want to do too much, please go ahead and do it, but I'm keeping it really simple. Another thing is you could have left a little bit of broth from the chicken that was boiled and added it to this, but I forgot. I just like put everything into the rice because I'm really picky on how the rice tastes. So I'm just going to add the dry chicken to it, and that's what we have there. Stir very well. Can't talk today. and then let it cook for a little bit. You don't want it to cook for too much because the chicken's already cooked. If not, it's going to fall apart. But that's what it looks like, and that's the chicken ready. Yum yum. I'm going to make a little quick salad: lettuce, cabbage, tomatoes. Again, you can add whatever you want to this. I'm just going to use simple ingredients. I usually use cucumbers, but the ones I had went bad, so I'm just going to dice it up, chop it up finely. Just a fine chop like that, and then dice up my cabbage and slice up my tomatoes. I already have some carrots that's already been diced up that I bought from the store, and I'm just going to mix everything together, and that will be the salad. I'll just let you guys watch it. It's kind of self-explanatory. That's the cabbage. So yeah, so that's the simple salad I made. I'm just going to toss it, make sure everything is well mixed, and then I'm using 1 tomatoes. If you don't like tomatoes, you can skip this step, but I love tomatoes, especially when it's a little bit hard. This one is quite hard, as you can see. And then I'm going to add it to my mixture, and that's it, pretty much. That's the entire recipe. It looks easy, but it took a while. This entire process took me at least 5 hours. Of course, I had lots of things cooking at the same time, but I edited it out so that it looked like I was cooking them one at a time. So that's our jollof rice. You can see everything is separate, nothing is clumpy, it's not mushy, it's just well cooked. And that's the chicken, and then that's our salad by the side. So please, you guys can recreate this recipe. Let me know, comment, like, subscribe, and thank you for staying with me, and tell me if you want more cooking videos. Thank you. Bye bye.